You were never my first choice, Ryan. You're just the safe one. My fallback guy." The words landed with the force of a brick through stained glass. Forks paused midair, the soft clink of cutlery dying into stunned silence. Around the long candlelit table at the drift line, a quaint seaside restaurant Emily had insisted we visit, her family froze. Even the waves outside seemed to hush. I blinked, unsure if I'd misheard. But Emily's smile stayed steady, her fingers gracefully folding her napkin as if she'd just commented on the fish being a bit too salty. Across from her, I sat dumbfounded, the warm glow from the hanging lanterns doing nothing to thaw the cold flush crawling up my spine. "You mean that?" I asked, voice tighter than I intended. "You actually said that out loud? To your parents, your sister, me?" Emily leaned back, lips twitching in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I mean, come on. We all know you're not the kind of guy women dream of running away with. You're the one we settle for. The one who's always there." Her father cleared his throat. Her mother looked down at her plate, cheeks burning with secondhand shame. Olivia, her younger sister, stared at me with wide eyes, horrified. I glanced around the table. Not one person laughed. "You didn't have to marry me, Emily," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "You had choices." She shrugged. "Yeah, and I made the one that made sense at the time." Something inside me shifted. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. This was a message. And I got it. "You just wanted someone boring enough not to threaten you," I said, setting my fork down. "Someone predictable." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't twist this. No need to twist it. You just made it crystal clear." I stood. "Excuse me." I didn't storm off. That would have given her too much power. Instead, I walked to the patio's edge, letting the sea air slap some feeling back into my face. The smell of salt, the hush of the ocean, it was the only thing that felt real in that moment. I used to think our marriage was built on quiet compatibility, that she appreciated my steadiness, my loyalty, the way I showed up every single day. But now I saw it. She saw me as furniture, something she could sit on when tired, lean against when convenient. And I was done being a backdrop. My name's Ryan. I'm 38. CPA. Steady paycheck. Quiet habits. One dog. No kids. Unless you count the 200 tax clients I take care of like family. And up until tonight, I thought being dependable was a strength. But as I stood watching the tide roll in, her voice echoing in my head, I realized something painful but necessary. Being the fallback guy only works if you never fall. And I had. Hard. But this was where the story begins to turn. Because no matter how deep the cut, the truth has a way of surfacing. And sometimes, the most polite men carry the sharpest truths in silence. Stay tuned. What happened after this night? You won't believe how fast masks start to slip. The next morning, she was humming, as if last night hadn't happened, as if she hadn't gutted me in front of her entire family like I was some character in a play who didn't matter beyond his cue. I stood at the kitchen entrance, barefoot, still in the t-shirt I'd slept in, though slept is generous. My mind had spiraled all night, replaying her words on an endless loop. Fallback guy. Safe. Settled. Convenient. And now here she was, standing at the stove, flipping eggs like she hadn't set a bomb under our marriage the night before. "Morning," Emily said brightly, glancing over her shoulder. "Coffee's hot. You want scrambled or over easy?" I stared at her back. The sun through the window caught in her hair, painting it gold. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful. I didn't respond. Just walked over, poured myself a cup of coffee, and sipped it in silence. She turned then, spatula in hand, eyebrows rising just a little. "Ryan." Still nothing. Just a small nod. That was it. That's all I gave her. And it said more than any fight could. The eggs sizzled as she turned back to them. I could feel her discomfort bloom like a slow bruise. She wanted a reaction, wanted a reset. But I wasn't playing that game. Not anymore. A soft rustle interrupted the tension. An envelope slid under the door. Emily patted over, picked it up, and frowned at the handwriting. "It's from my parents," she muttered. She tore it open, read it, then read it again, lips tightening with each word. I didn't have to ask. I already knew. They were apologizing. Not to her. To me. And they should have. They'd watched her mock me like a stranger. Her mother had looked mortified. Her father, like he'd failed to raise someone kind. She folded the letter back up and set it on the counter, her silence now louder than mine. I finished my coffee and rinsed the mug, letting the water run a little longer than necessary. The air between us had thickened into something cold and fragile. She tried again, voice lighter this time. Do you want to go to the boardwalk later? It's supposed to be sunny. I turned, looked her in the eyes for the first time since last night, and said, calmly, I have things to do. Then I walked out. The door didn't slam. It closed quietly. But even in that stillness, something cracked. Our home had turned into a stage. Each room, a quiet set. Each conversation, a half-rehearsed scene. But there was no script for what came next. And as I drove along the coast, letting the wind cut through the open window, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt distance. Real, irreversible distance. Funny how it shows up. Not with screaming or shattering glass, but with eggs you didn't ask for and apologies written in someone else's hand. And as the waves crashed along the shore beside me, one thought kept pulsing in my chest. She doesn't even realize what she's already lost. It started with a text. Short, unassuming. Hey Ryan, just wanted to say, I saw how you handled dinner. And I admire that. Olivia. Olivia. Emily's younger sister. The quiet one. Always in the background at family events. Listening more than she spoke. Watching the room like she was gathering data the rest of us missed. I stared at her message for a full minute, thumb hovering. My instinct was to leave it unanswered. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't know what to say to someone who still had grace left in her chest. But I wrote back, thanks. Not sure I handled it. Just didn't want to make things worse. She replied within seconds. You didn't. You held your ground. With dignity. Most people don't know how to do that. Dignity. It's a small word until someone hands it back to you after it's been trampled. The messages continued in short bursts over the next few days. Safe, kind topics. Books. Music. Weather. Nothing charged, nothing improper. But then she said something that lingered. If you ever want a coffee that doesn't come with tension and eggshells, I know a place. I almost didn't go. But Saturday afternoon found me sitting across from her at a sunlit cafe near the marina, the sea breeze slipping in through the open windows. Olivia wore a green sweater, hair pulled back. No makeup, just her, open and real. We didn't talk about Emily. Not at first. We talked about small things that didn't feel small. Her job at the community library. My tendency to reorganize spreadsheets when I'm anxious. Her soft laugh when she admitted she secretly judged people who don't use bookmarks. Then the silence stretched, not awkward, but full. She stirred her coffee, eyes down, then said softly, You know, I've always wondered why someone like you stayed with someone like Emily. I looked up. What do you mean? She hesitated, then met my gaze. You see people. You listen. Emily, she's always been good at talking. But she's never really listened. I didn't know what to say. Because hearing that from someone else, someone inside her world, felt strangely healing. Like confirmation that I hadn't imagined the imbalance. I stayed, I said finally. Because I thought marriage meant choosing someone even when they're difficult. Even when they push. Olivia nodded slowly. That's noble. But exhausting. We sat in silence again, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. When I finally left, she didn't hug me. Didn't linger. Just smiled gently and said, You deserve to be seen. And as I drove home, something quiet but powerful settled in my chest. That afternoon hadn't been a rebellion. It hadn't been flirtation. It had been something much rarer, comfort. The kind that doesn't rush, doesn't ask for more, doesn't need a name. And as I pulled into the driveway, I realized I hadn't thought about Emily once during that entire hour. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like peace. My birthday landed on a Thursday that felt like a Tuesday. No celebration buzz in the air, no party plans. Just emails, coffee, and gray skies pressing against the windows of my office. I wasn't expecting anything, especially not from Emily. But when I got home, there was a small, flat box on the kitchen counter. Blue ribbon. No note. She appeared in the doorway a moment later, phone in one hand, acting like she hadn't just left something waiting for me. Oh. That's for you, she said, motioning to the box like it was an afterthought. Happy birthday. I gave her a nod and opened it. Inside was a white mug. Plain. Mass-produced. It had bold black text that read, World's Okayest Husband. I stared at it. She chuckled. It's funny, right? I didn't say anything. Just turned the mug slowly in my hand. There was a time I might have laughed. Might have taken the jab in stride, tried to read the humor in it. But now it just felt hollow. She was watching me, waiting for a reaction. I gave her nothing. Later that evening, a knock came at the door. It was Olivia. She stood there, damp from a light rain, holding a neatly wrapped package. Her expression was soft but sure. I know it's your birthday, she said. I hope this isn't too much. I stepped aside to let her in, and Emily's voice floated from the living room. Liv, I'm not staying long, Olivia called back. I opened the box while she stood quietly by the counter. Inside was a small, hand-bound poetry collection. Leather cover. Tucked inside was a pressed leaf and a short inscription in neat handwriting. For someone who listens deeply. May these words feel like good company. I swallowed the sudden lump in my throat. This is beautiful. She smiled. I thought of you when I read it. Emily walked in just then, holding her wine glass, eyes sweeping the scene with practiced calm. Oh, she said. You brought something. Olivia met her gaze with quiet steadiness. Yes, poetry, Emily said, taking a sip. How delicate. I could feel the tension vibrating under the surface. Olivia didn't flinch. Emily leaned against the wall, voice light. Well, at least now he has 2 mugs and a book. We're building a library. It was meant to be a joke, but it was the kind that cut on its way out. Olivia ignored the bait and turned to me. I'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening. She left with a nod, and when the door clicked shut behind her, Emily didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then, casually, you two have been spending a lot of time together. I didn't answer, just placed the poetry book gently on the shelf next to a row of untouched travel guides Emily had insisted we buy, but never opened. Later, as I stood alone by the window, flipping through the delicate pages, something occurred to me. It wasn't about the book. It was about what it represented. Care, thought, presence. And from the way Emily had watched me reading it, I could tell. She noticed the difference. For once, I didn't need to explain it to her. She already felt it. I heard it before I saw it. Voices. Sharp. Heated. Climbing over each other from the hallway. I set my coffee down and stepped quietly toward the noise, heart already bracing for the weight of it. It was coming from Emily's childhood bedroom. Olivia's voice first, rising like steam off boiling water. Why does everything have to revolve around you? I paused outside the door. The air felt charged, electric. You think I want this? Emily snapped back. You think I planned for him to look at you like that? My breath caught. Olivia's voice trembled, not with fear, but with fury. You don't get to call it betrayal when you were the one who lit the match. You called him a fallback guy, in front of all of us. Emily's response was immediate. I was angry. I was trying to wake him up. You humiliated him, Olivia said, voice lower now, but every word crystal sharp. And you've been doing it for years. Everyone's just been too polite to say it. I should have walked away. I should have respected their space. But I opened the door. They both turned at once, startled by my presence. Olivia looked flushed, arms crossed tightly. Emily's mascara had smudged slightly beneath one eye. Whether from tears or rage, I couldn't tell. Emily's voice was brittle. So, now you're eavesdropping. No, I said calmly. Just walking past. Hard not to hear shouting when the walls are thin. She scoffed, shaking her head like I was the problem now. This is ridiculous. We're just having a disagreement. Is that what you call it? Olivia said, voice shaking. You accused me of stealing your marriage. Your mess of a marriage. Emily whirled on her. You think he's surprised now because he's quiet and sad and lets you read him poems? Olivia blinked. The insult didn't land the way Emily hoped. I stepped in, gently but clearly. Emily. She turned to me, eyes sharp. What? You're not going to defend your new little confidant? I'm not here to argue, I said. I came up because I heard yelling. That's it. She laughed, hollow and high. Of course you're not here to argue. You're the safe one, remember? Always avoiding conflict. Something inside me wanted to rise to that. To match her volume. To crack the floor with my voice. But I didn't. I looked at Olivia instead, who stood straighter, despite the redness in her eyes. Emily turned away from both of us, stormed toward the window, muttering something I couldn't make out. I didn't want this, Olivia whispered. I know, I said. And I meant it. She nodded once and left the room without another word. I stayed behind. Emily wouldn't face me. She kept her back turned, arms folded, shoulders tight. For the first time in our marriage, I didn't feel small in the silence. I felt steady. Let her fume. Let her hurl accusations. Let her feel the sting of losing control. Because I had spent years giving her the benefit of the doubt. And in that moment, it became crystal clear. She never thought I'd leave. She just never counted on me standing up first. I didn't pack a suitcase. Not yet. But I started gathering the small things, documents, account info, keys to the storage unit, passwords I used to leave written on a sticky note by the desk. There was no confrontation, no announcement, just quiet, deliberate preparation. Every evening, Emily would oscillate between forced normalcy and subtle needling. One moment, she was dropping hints about weekend plans we hadn't made. The next, she was slamming kitchen drawers just a bit too hard when I didn't respond the way she wanted. But I was already gone in every way that mattered. The morning after the argument between her and Olivia, she brewed coffee and set 2 mugs on the table like nothing had happened. "Thought we could talk," she said, sliding a pastry across the counter. "I know things have been tense." I sat down but didn't touch it. She smiled thinly. "You and Olivia, that was never your plan, right?" It wasn't a question. It was bait. I sipped my coffee. "Plans aren't the issue, Emily." Her smile faltered. "So you're not denying it." I looked at her then. Really looked. Not with hurt or anger. Just clarity. "There's nothing to deny. You opened a wound. Olivia offered kindness. That's it." Her laugh was sharp and bitter. "Kindness. That's what we're calling it." "I'm not here to convince you of anything," I said. "I'm here to end the loop." She stood abruptly, knocking her chair into the counter behind her. "Loop?" she echoed. "What loop?" "The one where I keep trying, and you keep rewriting what trying looks like." She stared at me for a long moment, but there was nothing left to argue against. Just silence. Later that week, I met Olivia near the pier. No ceremony. Just 2 people sitting on a weathered bench, letting the ocean breeze do the talking. She held a paper cup between her palms, eyes on the horizon. "I should have told you something earlier," she said quietly. I turned to her, already bracing. "Before you 2 got married," she continued, "Emily was seeing someone. A guy from her yoga class." She said it ended, but it didn't. At least not right away. I didn't speak. She kept going. "I only found out because she told me, drunkenly, 2 weeks before the wedding. I begged her to be honest with you, but she swore it was over and that you were the right choice. Said you were the one who'd never leave." I stared at the water, its rhythm steady. I should have felt a fire light in my chest, but I didn't. What I felt was confirmation of the ache I'd been carrying for years without a name. "I'm sorry," she said. I nodded slowly. "You didn't know me that. But thank you." The breeze lifted a strand of her hair, and she tucked it behind her ear without looking at me. For the first time since this whole thing began, I wasn't wondering why. I wasn't questioning how I'd missed it. I was just done. And when we stood to leave, she reached out, not to hold my hand, but to rest her palm lightly against my arm. It said more than any apology. It said, "You're not alone in this." And for the first time in a long while, I believed it. We were all there again. Same long table, same restaurant, but nothing felt the same. Emily's parents had insisted on this dinner. To smooth things out, her mother said. To bring everyone back together. I agreed, not because I believed in reconciliation, but because I was ready. This wasn't about peace. This was about closure. Olivia sat to my left, quietly studying the flickering candlelight. Emily was across from me, back straight, lips painted in a defiant red. Her parents sat between us like buffers, hoping maybe, just maybe, if they smiled hard enough, nothing would explode. For a few minutes, it worked. Then Emily picked up her wine glass, smiled sweetly at her sister, and said, "So, Liv, tell me, does it feel good? Knowing you've become the emotional charity case he runs to when things get dull?" Olivia froze. The table went dead silent. I looked at Emily, stunned not by the insult, but by the precision of it. She wanted this to unravel. She needed it. "Emily," her mother whispered, horrified. Olivia's voice was soft. "Don't do this." But Emily wasn't finished. "No, let's talk about it," she said, laughing lightly. "Everyone's pretending like nothing's going on. But you and I both know, he's not staying for the coffee, is he?" I set my fork down. Emily turned to me then, triumph creeping into her voice. Why don't you tell them, Ryan? Tell them how you and Olivia. She didn't betray you, I said, calmly interrupting. You did that all by yourself. That stopped her cold. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a manila envelope, laid it gently in the center of the table. The words dissolution of marriage were printed at the top in bold, black ink. Emily stared at it. Her father closed his eyes. Her mother reached for her water glass, hands trembling. I looked at Emily without blinking. It's all there. I signed my part. Just needs yours. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Not at first. This is a joke, she said finally, but her voice was thinner than I'd ever heard it. No, I said. The joke was thinking dignity doesn't notice until it's gone. Olivia didn't move. Just sat there, hands folded, her silence more powerful than any defense. You really think you'll be happy with her? Emily snapped. You think she's going to? This isn't about her, I said. This is about me. Finally choosing truth over survival. I stood. I won't keep performing loyalty for someone who only applauds herself. Then I turned to Olivia. Would you walk with me? She nodded, stood slowly, and we left the table behind. The salt air outside felt like baptism. We walked quietly, side by side, until the laughter and clinking glasses faded into sea wind. Eventually, Olivia slipped her hand into mine. Behind us, through the restaurant window, Emily stood frozen in place. Alone, surrounded by everything she'd once controlled, and finally feeling what control never gave her: accountability.